An elderly couple had dinner at another couple's house, and after eating, the wives left the table and they went into the kitchen. The two gentlemen were talking, and one said, "Last night we went out to a new restaurant and it was really great. I would recommend it very highly." The other man said, "What is the name of the restaurant?" The first man thought and finally said, "What is the name of that flower you give to someone you love? You know, the one that's red and has thorns." "Do you mean a rose?" "Yes, that's the one," replied the man. He then turned towards the kitchen and yelled, "Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to last night?" Three girls go into the doctor's office. The first takes off her shirt, and the doctor notices that she has a blue Y on her chest. He asks, "How did you get that?" She answers, "Well, my boyfriend goes to Yale and he leaves his Yale sweatshirt on even when we make love." The next girl comes in and has a red H on her chest. She explains, "Well, my boyfriend goes to Harvard and he leaves his sweatshirt on even when we make love." The final girl comes in and has a W on her chest. The doctor asks, "Let me guess, you have a boyfriend that goes to Wisconsin?" She answers, "No, a girlfriend at Michigan." "Why?" An Irish priest was transferred to Texas. Father O'Malley rose from his bed one morning. It was a fine spring day in his new West Texas mission parish. He walked to the window of his bedroom to get a deep breath of the beautiful day outside. He then noticed there was a jackass lying dead in the middle of his front lawn. He promptly called the local police station. The conversation went like this. "Good morning. This is Sergeant Jones. How might I help you?" "And the best of the day to yourself. This is Father O'Malley at St. Anne's Catholic Church. There's a jackass lying dead in me front lawn, and would you be so kind as to send a couple o' your lads to take care of the matter?" Sergeant Jones, considering himself to be quite a wit, and recognizing the foreign accent, thought he would have a little fun with the good father, replied, "Well now, Father, it was always my impression that you people took care of the last rites." There was dead silence on the line for a long moment. Father O'Malley then replied, "Aye, 'tis certainly true, but we are also obliged to notify the next of kin first, which is the reason for me call." An older couple were going across the country by car. They stopped at a gas station, and he got out to fill the tank. The wife got out to go to the washroom, but the husband didn't see her leave the car. He paid for the gas and then drove off, leaving his wife at the gas station. When his wife came out of the washroom, she discovered that her husband had driven off. She waited for a while as she expected him to come back. But after a half hour, she went to the cashier and explained the situation. The cashier called the highway patrol and they dispatched a car after him. The patrol car caught up with him, sounded the siren, and the man pulled off the road. The officer went to the man's car and told him that he had driven off without his wife and that she was still back at the gas station. "Thank goodness," replied the man. "I thought that I'd gone deaf." Wait! Want to make a difference? For every 1,000 subscribers and likes, I'll donate $100 to a senior in need. Help me help the elderly. Subscribe now. A big city lawyer was representing the railroad in a lawsuit filed by an old rancher. The rancher's prize bull was missing from the section through which the railroad passed. The rancher was only asking to be paid the fair value of the bull. The case was scheduled to be tried before the Justice of the Peace at the courthouse, located in the town square. The railroad's attorney immediately cornered the rancher and tried to get him to settle out of court. He did his best-selling job, and finally the rancher agreed to take half of what he was originally asking. After the rancher had signed the release and accepted the check, the young lawyer couldn't resist gloating a little over his success. He tells the rancher, "You're really a country hick, old man. I sure put one over on you in there. You see, I couldn't have won the case." The engineer was asleep, and the fireman was in the caboose when the train went through your ranch that morning. I didn't have one witness to put on the stand. I bluffed you, the old rancher replied. Well, I'll tell you, young feller, I was a little worried about winning that case myself. 'Cause that darned bull came home this morning. The city health inspector walks into a new restaurant unannounced and takes a seat where he can see the kitchen. While he is sitting there, an order goes back for a pizza. The chef appears, and the health inspector nearly chokes when he sees that he is not wearing a shirt. As if the health inspector didn't already have enough fuel for his citation writing pen, the chef proceeded to grab a lump of pizza dough and press it out flat on his bare chest. Appalled, the health inspector had barely finished up when an order came back for a hamburger. The cook proceeded to grab a handful of ground meat and pressed it into a perfect patty in his armpit. Shocked and bewildered, the health inspector called for the manager and explained the gravity of the deplorable conditions he had seen. That's nothing, replied the manager. You should come back at 5 in the morning when he makes the donuts. A mother visits her son for dinner, who has a girl as a roommate. During the meal, his mother can't help but notice how pretty his roommate is. She has long been suspicious of a relationship between the two, and this has only made her more curious. Over the course of the evening, while watching the two interact, she starts to wonder if there's more between her son and his roommate. Reading his mom's thoughts, her son volunteers. I know what you must be thinking, but I assure you, we are just roommates. About a week later, his roommate comes to him and says, Ever since your mother came over for dinner, I've been unable to find the silver serving tray. You don't suppose your mother took it, do you? He replies, Well, I doubt it, but I'll email her just to be sure. He sits down and writes, Dear Mom, after visiting me, I found that my silver serving tray is missing. I'm not saying that you took it, and I'm not saying that you didn't take it. But the fact remains that it has been missing ever since you were over for dinner. Love, your son. Several days later, he receives an email from his mother which reads, Dear son, I'm not saying that you sleep with your roommate. And I'm not saying that you don't sleep with her. But the fact remains that if she was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the silver serving tray by now. Under her pillow. Son, Daddy, I fell in love and want to date this awesome girl. Father, that's great, son. Who is she? Son, it's Sandra, the neighbor's daughter. Father, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. I have to tell you something, son, but you must promise not to tell your mother. Sandra is actually your sister. The boy is naturally bummed out, but a couple of months later, Son, Daddy, I fell in love again, and she's even hotter. Father, that's great, son. Who is she? Son, it's Angela, the other neighbor's daughter. Father, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Angela is also your sister. This went on a few more times, and finally the son was so mad, he went straight to his mother crying. Son, Mom, I am so mad at Dad. I fell in love with 6 girls, and I can't date any of them because Dad is their father. The mother hugs him affectionately and says, You can date whoever you want. He isn't your father. A teacher told her young class to ask their parents for a family story with a moral at the end of it, and to return the next day to tell their stories. In the classroom the next day, Joe gave his example first. My dad is a farmer and we have chickens. One day we were taking lots of eggs to the market in a basket on the front seat of the truck when we hit a big bump in the road. The basket fell off the seat and all the eggs broke. The moral of the story is not to put all your eggs in one basket. Very good, said the teacher. Next it was Mary's turn. We are farmers too. We had 20 eggs waiting to hatch, but when they did, we only got 10 chicks. The moral of this story is not to count your chickens before they're hatched. Very good, said the teacher again. Very pleased with the response so far. Next it was little Johnny's turn to tell his story. My dad told me this story about my Aunt Karen. Aunt Karen was a flight engineer in the war, and her plane got hit. She had to bail out over enemy territory, and all she had was a bottle of whiskey, a machine gun, and a machete. "Go on," said the teacher, intrigued, so little Johnny continued. Aunt Karen drank the whiskey on the way down to prepare herself. Then she landed right in the middle of 100 enemy soldiers. She dropped 70 of them with the machine gun until she ran out of bullets. Then she nailed 20 more with the machete until the blade broke. And then she dispatched the last 10 with her bare hands. "Good heavens," stammered the horrified teacher. "What did your father say was the moral of that frightening story?" Little Johnny replied, "Don't mess with Aunt Karen when she's been drinking." A tough-looking group of bikers were riding when they saw a girl about to jump off a bridge, so they stop. The leader, a big burly man, gets off his bike and says, "What are you doing?" "I'm going to commit suicide," she says. While he did not want to appear insensitive, he didn't want to miss an opportunity, he asked, "Well, before you jump, why don't you give me a kiss?" So she does, and it was a long, deep, lingering kiss. After she's finished, the biker says, "Wow, that was the best kiss I've ever had. That's a real talent you are wasting. You could be famous. Why are you committing suicide?" "My parents don't like me dressing up like a girl." A hiker, clearly shaken, enters a remote English village pub, his clothes all torn and he's full of scratches. "You won't believe this," he says to the bartender. "I was attacked by a leopard." "Really?" "Yes, a leopard. In England." The hiker sits down and orders the strongest liquor they've got. "I tried to run, but it was of course much faster than me." The hiker gets his glass, empties it, and asks for another. "It sent me to the ground with a mighty push from its paws, but weirdly enough, it then just gave me a really sad look and left." "Ah, you met Father Andrews," the bartender says matter-of-factly. "What do you mean?" asks the tourist, confused. "Father Andrews was our priest, a truly kind-hearted man, loved by all. His only goal in life was to serve his congregation as well as he could. So when he one day found a lamp with a genie, his very first wish was to be a loving shepherd to the community." "That's nice." "Absolutely. If only he hadn't been so prone to spoonerisms." Lawyers should never ask a Georgia grandma a question if they aren't prepared for the answer. In a trial, a southern small-town prosecuting attorney called his first witness, a grand, motherly, elderly woman, to the stand. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know me?" She responded, "Why, yes, I do know you, Mr. Williams. I've known you since you were a boy, and frankly, you've been a big disappointment to me. You lie, you cheat on your wife, and you manipulate people and talk about them behind their backs. You think you're a big shot when you haven't the brains to realize you'll never amount to anything more than a 2-bit paper pusher. Yes, I know you." The lawyer was stunned. Not knowing what else to do, he pointed across the room and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know the defense attorney?" She again replied, "Why, yes, I do. I've known Mr. Bradley since he was a youngster too. He's lazy, bigoted, and he has a drinking problem. He can't build a normal relationship with anyone, and his law practice is one of the worst in the entire state. Not to mention, he cheated on his wife with 3 different women. One of them was your wife. Yes, I know him." The defense attorney nearly died. The judge asked both counselors to approach the bench and, in a very quiet voice, said, "If either of you idiots asks her if she knows me, I'll send you both to the electric chair." A young guy moved to California and went to a big box store looking for a job. The manager of the store asked him, "Do you have any sales experience?" The guy replied, "Yeah, I was a salesman back home." The manager liked him and gave him the job. "You can start tomorrow. I'll come down after we close and see how you did." His first day on the job was rough, but he got through it. After the store was locked up, the manager came down and asked, "How many customers bought something from you today?" The guy replies, "Just one." The boss asks, "Just one? Our salespeople average 20 to 30 customers a day." The boss continued, "How much was the sale for?" The guy replied, "Over $125,000. The boss was shocked. "Over $125,000? What the heck did you sell?" The guy answered, "First, I sold him a fish hook. Then I sold him a new fishing rod. Then I asked him where he was going fishing, and he said down the coast. So I told him he was going to need a boat. So we went down to the boat department, and I sold him a twin-engine Boston whaler. Then he said he didn't think his Honda Civic would pull it, so I took him down to the automotive department and sold him that Expedition." The boss was amazed. "A guy came in here to buy a fish hook, and you sold him a boat and a truck?" The guy said, "No, the guy came in here to buy tampons for his wife, and I said, 'Dude, your weekend's shot. You should go fishing.'" And before you go, here's the deal. I tell jokes on YouTube, but this is no joke. For every 1,000 subscribers and likes on this video, I will find 50+ homeless people and donate $100 each to them. Hit subscribe and let's spread laughs and kindness.